thank you to our witnesses. You've endured a lot over these last several hours, but I appreciate your time today. I had held great hopes that we would get to the bottom of some of the events that happened on January 6th. It was no doubt a dark day in our country's history. Unfortunately, this hearing has not been anything like I would have anticipated. This is not an effort to get to the truth. It's not to find out what really happened. It's nothing but a political show, and let me dive into that a little bit. But first, I do have a question for our three witnesses. And first, Chief Conte, which law enforcement agency would you say has the primary responsibility for protecting the Capitol?
The United States Capitol Police.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rosen, would you agree with that assessment?
I do agree with that. The Capitol Police are part of the legislative branch and are responsible for security at the Capitol.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Miller, would you agree as well?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, thank you all. It is interesting that we have no one here from Capitol Police today. Chief Conte, this will be a question coming to you, but on January 3rd, the Capitol Police issued an internal report called a Special Event Assessment, stating that the Intelligence and Interagency Coordination Division was tracking several protests that were to take place on January 5th and 6th, and that there were indications that the protesters could be armed. It doesn't appear that that internal report was shared with other law enforcement agencies or the FBI. Was your agency made aware of that report?
No, not prior to January the 6th. That's correct.
Would it have been helpful information to you to know that there was another corroborating source that there might be armed folks taking place in those events on the 6th?
I believe it would have been helpful, but the Metropolitan Police Department, just in terms of our deployment, we had signs posted on the National Mall regarding individuals who could be armed, that kind of thing, but it certainly would have been helpful.
Great, thank you. A similar report was issued by the FBI's field office in Norfolk. We've heard about that. It was in the press, warning that extremists were sharing online plans to travel to D.C., encouraging each other to be violent and, quote, ready for war. The FBI claims that information was shared with the field office in Washington, and then subsequently the Joint Terrorism Task Force, which includes Capitol Police, the Park Police, D.C. Metro Police, among others. Chief, were you aware of that report from the Norfolk FBI office?
No, it was emailed to our agency.
Okay, so that it was emailed to the agency, but didn't make it to your attention. Okay, that's correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay, our understanding as well, Chief Son of the U.S. Capitol Police claims that he didn't receive that report either. Seems to me like that'd be some pretty critical information to know. But everyone seems in agreement that the Capitol Police would be the agency most responsible for protecting the Capitol, and yet they're not here today. I can't for the life of me fathom why, if we're going to call a panel of witnesses, that the agency primarily responsible for safeguarding this institution wasn't invited to participate. But that's another question for another day. So beyond that, another topic that came up here, it was brought to my attention, Mr. Rosen and Mr. Miller, the two of you, along with Secretary McCarthy, received a letter from Mayor Bowser on January 5th. Are you familiar with the letter I'm talking about, or should I refresh you guys on it?
No, I'm familiar. It's attached to my written testimony.
Okay, and could you elaborate for all of us here a little about of what the mayor was stating in her letter to you?
Yeah, she wrote to the Army Secretary and to the Acting Secretary of Defense and me, and just indicated that she wanted us aware that, I'll just read the beginning. As the law enforcement agency charged with protecting residents and visitors throughout the District of Columbia, the Metropolitan Police Department is prepared for this week's First Amendment activities. MPD has coordinated with its federal partners, namely the Park Police and U.S. Capitol Police and U.S. Secret Service, all of whom regularly have uniformed personnel protecting federal assets in the District of Columbia. And she goes on and clarifies or expresses that the District of Columbia government has not requested personnel from any other federal law enforcement agencies. And to be clear, the District of Columbia is not requesting other federal law enforcement personnel and discourages any additional deployment without immediate notification to and consultation with MPD if such plans are underway.
Well, thank you. And it seems to me that that's important information. And, again, I would love to have the mayor here so we could ask her directly about some of this, but for whatever reason, my colleagues across the aisle have not deemed those witnesses to be important enough to bring before us today. I look forward to getting to the bottom of this when we're ready to have a serious hearing, and apparently that's not the case today, but thank you, Madam Chair. I yield back.